The lights of Evercrest department store shimmered across the polished marble floors, their reflection gliding like liquid gold. A woman on her knees scrubbed a stubborn coffee stain, her hands cracked, her back stiff, her grey uniform drenched in sweat. Her name was Martha Hale, the cleaning lady everyone ignored. "Hey, careful, you missed a spot," said Sophie, the store manager, her high heels clicking like a countdown. Behind her, two salesgirls giggled, arms crossed, watching Martha with smug amusement. "She's been here forever," one of them whispered. "Probably thinks this mop is her life partner." The other chuckled. "Imagine being her age and still cleaning toilets. Tragic." Martha looked up just once, not with anger, not with tears, but with something quieter, a promise. "Don't worry," she murmured under her breath. "You'll remember my face one day." The moment passed unnoticed. But in Martha's chest, a small fire ignited, slow, steady, unstoppable. Voice-over tone, cinematic, soft but growing powerful. They mocked the cleaning lady, but they had no idea who she really was, or what she was capable of becoming. For 10 years, Martha had worked in Evercrest, the most prestigious department store in the city. Every morning before sunrise, she arrived carrying the same faded blue bucket and a quiet smile. She knew every inch of the place, from the perfume section that smelled like wealth to the glass elevators that reflected her face 1,000 times. To her, Evercrest wasn't just a job. It was a world she helped shine. Yet to everyone else, she was invisible. The shoppers stepped around her mop as if she were a moving piece of furniture. The staff barely spoke to her unless to complain. Once she had dreams of opening a small cafe with her husband, Samuel. But Samuel had died young, leaving her with debts and a roof barely holding up, so she cleaned and saved and endured. But what no one knew was that every night after her shift, Martha studied. She took online business classes from an old laptop donated by a kind neighbor. She learned about investments, property management, and retail strategy. Each lesson was a brick in the invisible foundation of her future. She never said a word. She just kept cleaning and planning. And in that silence, destiny began to move. Before we go deeper into Martha's story, tell me, from which country and city are you listening to the Triumph Stories tonight? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the moment when Martha turns everything upside down. It was the annual Evercrest Employee Gala, the one night when every worker, even the janitors, was invited to the Grand Hall. But the reality, the lower staff, were only there to serve drinks and clean up afterward. Martha walked in wearing her neat uniform, holding a tray of champagne glasses. Around her, laughter sparkled like diamonds. Sophie, the manager, stood at the center, wearing a golden dress. "A toast," she announced, "to success, and to those who make Evercrest shine." Everyone clapped. Then Sophie turned, eyes on Martha. "Of course, we owe some shine to our cleaning crew. Especially Martha. She's practically part of the floor by now." The room erupted in laughter. Glasses clinked. Even some of the new hires chuckled nervously. Martha froze, the tray trembling in her hands. Champagne spilled on her wrist, burning like acid. She whispered, "Excuse me," and walked out, quietly, gracefully. But inside, her heart cracked open. Out in the cold night, she stood under the neon lights of Evercrest. Her reflection glowed faintly in the glass doors. "One day," she said softly, "these lights will belong to me." The next morning, Martha returned to work, calm, polite, unshaken on the outside. But she had made a decision. She sold her late husband's old car, used her small savings, and bought a tiny kiosk downtown, a stand selling second-hand clothes. Every night after cleaning Evercrest, she went there. She washed, ironed, and arranged every piece herself. She named it Second Chance. Weeks passed, then months. Her little shop began attracting loyal customers, people who loved her warmth and the honesty of her prices. She listened to them, learned from them, understood what they wanted. Soon she began buying leftover stock from small boutiques, things unsold but full of potential. She refurbished them, added her touch, and sold them with a smile. Her profits doubled, then tripled. At Evercrest, she was still the cleaning lady. Outside, she was building an empire. Sometimes, during late nights, she'd look across the street at Evercrest's bright windows and whisper, "You laughed at the woman with a mop, but that mop taught her how to rise." One rainy evening, while Martha was cleaning the Evercrest staff lounge, she overheard two accountants talking. "Evercrest's in trouble," one whispered. "The owner's selling a few branches." "Really?" the other replied. "No one's supposed to know that yet." Martha froze mid-swipe. "Branches for sale." She waited until they left, then sat down, her heart racing. This was the moment she'd unknowingly prepared for all those years. She went home and made a call to Mr. Patel, a retired investor who'd once been a customer at her kiosk. He had admired her honesty and determination, once telling her, "If you ever have a big idea, Martha, call me." That night she did. "Mr. Patel," she said, her voice trembling, "I have an idea that could change everything. I want to buy a store. Not just any store, the one I've been cleaning for 10 years. There was silence on the line. Then came a calm laugh. "Martha, I believe you can." And with that belief, her revenge, no, her rebirth, truly began. Martha spread her notes across the small kitchen table like a battlefield map. The papers were tide-marked with coffee rings and highlighted margins, but the mind behind them was razor-sharp. On a video call, Mr. Patel appeared in a soft pool of lamplight, his bookshelf lined with the careful trophies of a life spent building things that lasted. "Show me your plan," he said. Martha inhaled slowly. "Evercrest is selling 3 branches. The downtown flagship is struggling with debt, but its location is irreplaceable. I propose we buy it, restructure operations, and relaunch with a dual model. Premium experience upstairs, circular retail, and community-centered refurbish downstairs. We will turn shame into prestige, starting with how we treat people." Patel nodded, eyes narrowing in thought. "Numbers?" She flipped to a spreadsheet she'd built late at night after mopping aisles. "Acquisition at a negotiated discount due to liabilities. We secure seller financing for part of it, plus a small business loan under urban revitalization. My kiosk profits become seed equity. We streamline vendor contracts, add consignment partnerships, and create a refurbishment studio as a revenue engine. Inventory from local creators reduces cash burn and increases foot traffic." Patel smiled. "You speak like a merchant and a mayor." "I speak like a cleaner who knows where every hidden stain is," Martha replied. "In retail, dirt is culture. If leaders ignore it, it spreads. I will make culture our product." He leaned forward. "And the people who mocked you?" She shook her head. "They are irrelevant data points. The only revenge that matters is excellence." Patel folded his hands. "I will stake 40%, contingent on diligence and a competitive bid." Martha felt the room expand, like the walls decided to breathe. "Then we move now." He chuckled. "You remind me of my younger self, only braver. Prepare your documents. I'll assemble a legal advisor and a banker I trust. And Martha—" "Yes?" "Don't let sentiment slow you. Mercy can be firm." She nodded, gaze steady. "I understand." As the call ended, the kitchen fell quiet. The clock hummed. She placed a palm on the table's battered wood, a surface that had known grief and hunger, and bills paid 1 coin at a time. "We're not poor anymore," she whispered to the ghost of Samuel. "We're building." Outside, dawn dipped its first silver brush across the city. Somewhere, the lights in Evercrest clicked on, unaware that a woman who once scrubbed its floors had just drafted the blueprint of its future. The next days moved like chess. By morning, Martha was the quiet cleaner with a keyring that sang softly at her hip. By afternoon, she was a strategist taking calls in alleys and bus stops, speaking in the measured cadence of numbers that believed in themselves. She knew Evercrest's guts. She knew the hidden storage spaces where obsolete displays gathered dust like a museum of bad decisions. She knew which escalators squeaked because of a bolt that had never been tightened, which fitting rooms lost sales because their mirrors were lit like interrogation lamps. She knew staff schedules, traffic rhythms, and the smell of the perfume that shoppers actually bought versus the one they only sampled for selfies. With Patel's banker, she built a diligence file, lease terms, maintenance contracts, vendor agreements, salary bands, shrinkage reports. She traced the slow hemorrhage of loss prevention failures and drafted a floor redesign that flowed like a river instead of a maze. She even proposed a micro-warehouse in the basement with a fast pickup corridor, using the defunct loading dock nobody respected. At night, she visited Second Chance, her kiosk, and trained Luz, a single mother with a sparkle for storytelling, to manage the register and the merchandising. "You're not selling clothes," Martha told her. "You're selling dignity dressed as a good price. Look people in the eye." One evening, while wiping glass at Evercrest's north entrance, she felt a shadow pause at the door. It was Sophie, the manager in sharp navy, scrolling her phone. "You know, Martha," Sophie said without looking up, "some of the guests at the gala thought your little episode was melodramatic. We can't have staff walking out." Martha kept wiping, the circle of her cloth patient, precise. "Then it's a good thing I'm not staff," she said softly. Sophie looked up, frowning. "Excuse me. Forgive me. I'm contracted via facilities, different category." Martha smiled gently and returned to the glass. The truth was a bridge she would cross soon. The rest could wait. The diligence packet grew fat. Patel's lawyer, Asha Venkataraman, emailed at 1:17 a.m. "Your operational notes are unnervingly precise. You've done half our work. Recommendation: aggressive bid with earn-out and change of control clauses. Call at 9. Martha set her alarm for 5, rose at 4:30, and read case studies by lamplight, her breath fogging in the chill of a thin-walled apartment warming to ambition. By the end of the week, she could see the path, a humane store that ran like a symphony. All she had to do was survive the music until the baton was hers. News of potential sales never stays caged. Rumors slithered through Evercrest's gossip vents, and somewhere along the way, someone learned that a small investor group was circling the flagship. Sophie's heel clicks gained a new impatience. The regional director, Colin Ward, appeared twice in one day, prowling the perfume floor with a smile that didn't touch his eyes. That night, as Martha carted a bucket past the cosmetics counter, a liquid slick spread across the marble like a silver snake. "Careful," she warned the nearest associate. Before she could set the caution sign, Sophie materialized, voice bright enough to cut. "Martha, that spill, you're responsible for this zone, right? A customer could fall." Martha examined the puddle. It glistened with the faint shimmer of broken highlighter and something stickier. She glanced at the trash bin. A half-empty bottle of setting spray lay sideways, nozzle snapped as if by impatient fingers. An accident, or a trap set for someone to fail. Calmly, she placed the yellow sign. "I have it under control," she said. Sophie raised her phone as if rehearsed. "Do you? Because I'm documenting how long it takes you to respond. We need performance metrics." The store camera blinked red. A couple nearby paused, sensing theater. Martha knelt, absorbed the liquid layer by layer, moving like a surgeon stitching skin. Words would only feed the performance. Silence made the scene starve. From the second floor, Colin's gaze settled on the tableau. He descended. "Is there a problem?" His voice wore concern like a rented suit. Sophie smiled tight. "Just ensuring safety. Our cleaner took a bit too long." Martha stood, eyes level. "The spill appears to have been poured, sir, not dropped." The sentence hung there, simple, undesigned. Colin's eyes flicked to the broken nozzle in the bin, to the strategic shine of the puddle, to Sophie's posed posture. He said nothing. But he did something better. He turned away, uninterested in the show. Sophie's cheeks flushed, the color of luxury brand velvet. "Watch yourself," she hissed. "I always do," Martha said, and finished the job. When she returned to the staff room, her locker sat ajar. Inside, her worn notebook, the one with floor sketches, sales heat maps, and names of vendors who returned calls quickly, lay shifted. The edges were too neat, the way a thief leaves things after rummaging. She checked the back flap. A single page was missing. For the first time in weeks, a tremor rippled through her composure. She sat, hands folded to stop their quiver. "You can try to stain me," she whispered into the metal locker's hollow, "but I invented clean." Then she pulled out a fresh pad, rewrote what mattered, and locked the rest in her mind where no wandering manager could file it. Outside, the floor gleamed. Inside, resolve hardened like tempered glass. Sabotage was just dust in the light. Patel insisted on partners who were not parasites but builders. He introduced Diego Ramos, a logistics savant who once turned a failing furniture chain into a next-day delivery legend. Diego visited Evercrest in a plain jacket, eyes dancing over the store's arteries, the elevators, the loading docks, the corridors where time got lost. "You can cut 30% of wasted motion with a different pick path," he murmured to Martha, sketching a loop on his phone. "And why is your receiving team scheduled against peak customer hours? Flip it. Make backstage quiet when front stage needs to sing." Next came Yara Kim, a brand storyteller who understood that fashion was just costume for the inner life. She stood with Martha on the mezzanine, watching the staircases flow. "Your upstairs is a peacock trying to be a swan. Let it be a peacock, bold, curated, experiential. Downstairs, we build the heart, community fabrics, repair bar, trade-in credit. 2 levels, 1 soul, call it the Evercrest Renewal." Martha listened, annotated, absorbed. She did not pretend to know what she didn't. Pride, she'd learned, was the heavy bucket that spills the most. At the kiosk, Luce reported sales up 12% after a week of friendlier signage and a sunny playlist that made the cramped space feel like a party nobody wanted to leave. Martha trained her to post each garment with a short story, who might wear it, where, and why it mattered. Customers wrote back with their own stories. A grandmother sent a photo wearing a rescued silk scarf to her first dance class in 40 years. Martha printed the picture and taped it under the register like a flag. In the hallway outside Evercrest's break room, the barista from the lobby cafe, Mina, touched Martha's elbow. "I heard. Things are happening," she whispered. "If you need a coffee partner inside the store, someone who remembers names and brews comfort, call me." "I will," Martha said, adding Mina's name to a list titled "People Who Make Spaces Human." Each ally arrived not with bluster but with craft, as if the city's overlooked excellence had been waiting for one person to believe in it audibly. This was her quiet army, immigrants and single parents, retirees and 20-somethings with night school degrees, people who had learned to polish their corners of the world until they shone. She didn't need to conquer Evercrest. She needed to let his better self out. On a late bus ride home, Diego dozed, head bobbing. Yara reviewed mock-ups with a stylus, colors sliding into place like dawn over water. Martha watched the window mirror her face beside theirs and realized something electric. She wasn't lone anymore. Vengeance had rewritten itself into community. Power had changed pronouns from me to we. The day of the bid conference arrived with a sky the color of unpolished steel. Martha wore a navy dress pressed within an inch of pride, her hair simply pinned. Patel and Asha met her in the lobby of a modest law office that smelled faintly of lemon and paper. Diego and Yara joined via video, their thumbnails bright like comrades' flags. Across the table sat two other interested parties, a private equity pair whose wristwatches cost more than a month of wages, and a local mall operator with a smile that tried too hard. The Evercrest Holdings representative, a man with careful hair named Gregory Pike, distributed folders. "Thank you for your interest," Pike intoned. "We're accepting proposals for acquisition of the downtown flagship and 2 satellite branches. Considerations: assumption of select liabilities, maintenance of legacy vendor relationships, and a transition plan for current staff. Highest bid is not the sole determinant. We prioritize long-term stability of the brand." Asha slid their packet forward. "Our proposal includes a purchase price reflective of current debt exposure, plus an earn-out contingent on revenue targets. We request seller financing on a portion of assets, and we commit to preserving 80% of frontline staff with upskilling programs. We've included an operations turnaround plan and community engagement strategy." The mall operator smirked. "Charming, but retail is about rent and footfall. We have both." Patel glanced at Martha. She nodded. With a steady voice, she spoke. "Retail is about trust. We propose a floor plan that fixes line-of-sight theft, lighting that flatters skin tones instead of punishing them, and a returns policy that assumes customers are honest until proven otherwise. We also bring a refurbishment studio that turns returns into stories instead of losses. And we will make the cleaning staff central, daylight, dignified, visible, because nothing says respect like showing the work of care." Pike's eyes flicked to her. "And you are?" Martha held his gaze. "The person who's cleaned your store for 10 years. The one who knows why your north entrance smells different after 3 p.m. because the AC filter's never been replaced on schedule. The one who knows how to make your floors shine without killing the tile. And if you accept our offer, the owner who will change how this brand treats people." Silence recalibrated the room. The private equity partner coughed. "That's colorful. But numbers decide." "Indeed," Asha said, tapping the packet. "Our numbers sing." As presentations wrapped, Thunder shouldered the windows. Bids were submitted sealed. Decisions, Pike said, would arrive within 2 weeks. Outside, rain stitched the city together. On the sidewalk, Sophie waited beneath an expensive umbrella as if she'd sensed the gravity in the air. When Martha stepped out with Patel, Sophie's smile was small and sugarless. "Careful, Martha," she said. "Big dreams have sharp edges." Martha met the rain with her face upturned. "So do cheap umbrellas," she replied, and walked into the storm that felt suspiciously like a blessing in disguise. 2 weeks felt like 2 centuries. Martha cleaned, studied, and smiled, but inside her chest a storm kept circling. Every time her phone buzzed, she froze mid-motion. Every email notification made her heart skip, until she realized it was just another discount offer or a message from Luce about the kiosk. Patel remained calm, like a man who'd seen too many wars of patience. "Let them take their time," he told her over tea one evening. "Real decisions are slow because the people making them are afraid of being wrong. You, however, already won. You had the courage to try." Martha nodded, but she couldn't help it. Her hands still shook when she thought of what this meant. Owning Evercrest wasn't just business. It was justice, wrapped in destiny. One night, unable to sleep, she took the bus to downtown and stood across from the glowing store. Through the glass, she could see Sophie closing the registers, barking orders at a young clerk. The floor glistened. It looked perfect. But Martha could see the cracks, the exhaustion behind the clerk's smiles, the small acts of resentment that no polish could hide. She whispered, Hold on. Change is coming." And then she waited. 3 days later, her phone rang while she was mopping the perfume aisle. "Miss Hale," a man's voice said, "this is Gregory Pike from Evercrest Holdings. Congratulations, your consortium's bid has been accepted, pending final documentation." For a second, she forgot how to breathe. "Accepted," she repeated. "Yes, ma'am. We were impressed by your proposal's balance of innovation and humanity. Expect a meeting invitation tomorrow for the signing ceremony." When the call ended, Martha just stood there, mop in hand, tears spilling onto the freshly polished floor. She whispered, "We did it, Sam. We did it." The perfume in the air, jasmine and amber, suddenly smelled like victory. The conference room on the top floor of Evercrest Holdings was a temple of glass and chrome. Martha stood by the window, dressed in a charcoal suit, bought second-hand, but tailored to fit her new stature perfectly. Patel adjusted his cufflinks beside her, while Asha arranged the legal folders with a surgeon's precision. Gregory Pike entered with a faint smile, carrying the final documents. "Ms. Hale," he said, extending his hand, "congratulations. I must say your proposal has created quite a stir." "Good stir or bad?" Martha asked, half smiling. He chuckled. "Let's call it disruptive." They sat. The signing took less than 20 minutes. Signatures, initials, witness marks, and just like that, Martha Hale became majority owner of the Evercrest flagship. When the last pen stroke dried, she leaned back, exhaled, and felt her past fall off her shoulders like old dust. Patel raised his cup of coffee to the woman who turned soap and patience into gold. Martha laughed through her tears, to the people who believed a cleaning lady could buy a store. Outside, the city stretched endlessly, and for the first time, she didn't feel small before it. She felt equal to it. Before leaving, Pike paused. "You'll be taking over in 2 weeks, correct?" "Yes, I'll need time to meet the staff, review operations, and—" She smiled faintly. "Redefine what clean means." He nodded. "I look forward to seeing what you do, Ms. Hale." As they walked out, the elevator doors reflected her. No longer the woman carrying a mop, but a leader carrying a legacy. When they reached the ground floor, Patel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Now the real work begins," she smiled. "I've been working all along." The following week, Evercrest staff were called to an important company announcement. Rumors exploded. Some said a new corporate investor was taking over. Others whispered that layoffs were coming. Sophie, of course, strutted around pretending to have insider knowledge. "I heard it's a merger," she told the cosmetics team. "If we're lucky, maybe I'll finally get the regional director position." At precisely 9 a.m., the lights dimmed in the atrium. The employees gathered, cashiers, clerks, security, janitors. Sophie stood near the front, smiling with performative confidence. Gregory Pike took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering. Today marks a new chapter for Evercrest. We have a new ownership group, one deeply committed to the store's legacy and its people. Please welcome Ms. Martha Hale." A hush fell. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then all eyes turned toward the back where Martha stood in a tailored suit, holding her head high. Sophie's mouth fell open. "She—" Martha walked forward, the click of her shoes echoing through the marble hall that had once known her mop. "Good morning," she began. "Some of you know me. Some of you have seen me clean your floors, empty your trash, and polish your displays. I've loved this place longer than most of you have worked here. And now, I'm its new owner." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A cashier clapped first, then another, until the applause built like thunder. Sophie stood frozen, face pale. Martha looked directly at her. "And I'll need your help, Sophie, to make this transition smooth. You know this store's routines better than anyone. I'd like you to stay, if you can adapt to a culture of respect." Sophie swallowed. "Of course, Ms. Hale." Martha nodded graciously. Then let's build something extraordinary, together. It wasn't vengeance that filled her voice. It was grace, sharpened by truth. Ownership didn't mean rest. It meant rebuilding. Martha spent her days in meetings, her nights on the floor, learning every broken system. She replaced toxic supervisors with kind, competent leaders from within. Luz became head of customer experience. Mina from the cafe was offered the coffee concession inside the store. They tore down the staff-only barriers that had divided people for years. Now, janitors and sales reps shared the same break room, bright, clean, filled with laughter. Evercrest's grand reopening was a community event. Yara designed banners reading Evercrest Renewal, where every story shines. A local children's choir sang as the new logo was unveiled. Customers flooded in, greeted by warm smiles and soft music instead of corporate stiffness. People noticed the difference immediately, not just the look, but the feeling. One older woman stopped Martha near the escalator. "My dear, this place feels alive again." Martha smiled. That's the idea. Sales rose steadily, but what mattered most was morale. Employees who had once hidden behind their job titles now walked with pride. Even Sophie changed. She began arriving early, listening instead of commanding. Once, she approached Martha quietly. "I was cruel to you," she said. "I thought power meant distance. I was wrong." Martha smiled softly. "We all learn our lessons differently. Just make yours count." And Sophie did. Within months, Evercrest became not just profitable, but admired, a case study in humane leadership. Newspapers wrote about the cleaning lady who saved a brand, but Martha knew the truth. She hadn't saved it. She had cleansed it. 6 months later, Martha sat across from a journalist from the New York Herald. The woman adjusted her recorder. "Ms. Hale, your story has become a sensation. People call you the Queen of Clean. What drives you now that you've achieved success?" Martha chuckled softly. "Success? I see it as responsibility. When people mock you, they teach you who not to be. When life humbles you, it shows you where to build." "And the people who once mistreated you?" the journalist asked. "I thank them," Martha replied. "They gave me a reason to rise." The journalist leaned in. "Do you ever think of revenge?" Martha smiled. "This is revenge, but not the kind that hurts others, the kind that heals the world you came from." As the cameras flashed, she turned toward the window. The city skyline shimmered, tall, proud, unyielding. Somewhere inside the store, an employee mopped the floor. Martha watched the slow, graceful motion, and for a moment she saw herself, the woman she once was. And she whispered, not to the journalist, but to her reflection, "Never be ashamed of where you started. That's where your strength learned your name. Power is heavy, even when it's earned." Martha had thought ownership would bring peace. Instead, it brought responsibility. Decisions that kept her awake, nights filled with spreadsheets and stories of people she now led. When the quarterly report arrived, it showed soaring profits. But also a quiet warning. Their new supplier in East Asia was cutting costs through questionable labor practices. Martha stared at the numbers for a long time. Cheaper contracts meant faster growth. Turning a blind eye meant comfort, but comfort had never built her. The next morning she gathered her management team. "We're cutting ties," she said. Patel raised an eyebrow. "That'll hurt our margins." "Then we'll take the pain," Martha replied. "I'd rather grow slow and right than fast and rotten." Diego sighed but nodded. Yara smiled, proud. Word of the decision spread. Some investors grumbled, some applauded. But inside the store, employees stood taller. They knew they worked for someone who valued people over profit. Late that night, Martha walked the empty aisles alone. She touched the glass counters, the racks, the mannequins wearing kindness disguised as clothing. "I cleaned dirt," she murmured. "Now I clean conscience." The moonlight glimmered on the floor, perfectly polished, like her resolve. Success attracts ghosts. One Thursday afternoon, a familiar voice echoed through the lobby. "Ms. Hale, long time no see." Martha turned, and there he was. Colin Ward, the former regional director who'd once laughed at her behind closed doors, now standing in a sleek suit and forced smile. "What brings you here, Mr. Ward?" she asked politely. "I've been following your progress," he said. "Impressive work, truly." He handed her a business card. "I'm representing a development group interested in acquiring Evercrest Renewal. We'd like to discuss a potential partnership or buyout." Martha smiled lightly. "After all this time, you came to buy what you once stepped over." Colin chuckled awkwardly. "Business is business. You've turned this place into a phenomenon. Imagine scaling it nationwide. Thousands of Evercrest renewals. We have capital, distribution, influence." "And what would you have me do?" she asked. He leaned closer. "Take your payout. Retire rich. Let professionals handle expansion." Martha's eyes softened, almost pitying. "Professionals like the ones who ran it into the ground before?" He stiffened. "That was before market shifts. Things are different now." "Yes," she said quietly. "Now people matter." He smirked. "Idealism doesn't scale, Martha. Sooner or later you'll learn." "Perhaps," she said, "but by then the world will already be cleaner." She handed his card back, smiling. "Evercrest isn't for sale, but if your group wants to learn how to treat people right, my door's open." Colin left, smile brittle. When he was gone, Yara entered, holding her tablet. "Old ghost?" Martha nodded. "He offered me a fortune." "Tempting?" Yara asked. Martha looked around at the employees laughing by the register. "Not even close." The media adored Martha until they didn't. After her refusal to sell, a rival investor leaked stories. Cleaning lady CEO facing financial strain. Evercrest Renewal, idealism or naivete? Social media turned savage. "Let's see how long her fairy tale lasts," one comment read. Martha tried to ignore it, but the noise grew louder. Suppliers hesitated, customers questioned prices, even Patel looked worried. "Public perception drives trust," he told her. "Maybe do an interview, show stability." Martha agreed reluctantly. The night before the live broadcast, she sat alone in her office, lights off, city glowing outside. She looked at her old mop, framed in glass on the wall, a symbol of where she'd started. She whispered, "They mocked me then, they mock me now. But I'm still here." The next day, in front of cameras, she faced the questions head-on. "Ms. Hale," the reporter asked, "many say your emotional leadership will collapse under financial pressure. Your thoughts?" Martha smiled gently. "When I was cleaning floors, people said I'd never rise. When I rose, they said I'd never last. Maybe they're right. Maybe one day I'll fall. But I'll fall forward, not backward." The audience applauded. The clip went viral overnight, captioned "The cleaning lady who spoke like a queen." Critics fell silent. Customers returned. Sales doubled the following month. Her voice had cleaned the world's doubt like a rag through dust. 2 years passed. Evercrest Renewal grew, not into a franchise, but into a movement. Martha launched a foundation for women in low-wage jobs, offering scholarships for business and leadership training. She called it the Second Chance Fund, named after her first kiosk. Graduates began opening their own small shops, some tailoring, some cleaning, some tech startups. Each bore a simple plaque, inspired by Martha Hale, the woman who polished her own destiny. At the annual gala, Patel introduced her to the crowd. "Some people build wealth," he said. "Others build worth. Martha Hale built both, with grace." The crowd rose in ovation. Later that night, as the music played softly, Sophie approached. She wore a modest black dress and held a small wrapped box. "For you," Sophie said, "a gift." Inside was a small silver pendant, shaped like a mop. Martha laughed softly, eyes misting. "It's perfect," Sophie smiled. "You turned that mop into a crown." For once they hugged. No bitterness, no past, only understanding. Months later, a letter arrived on thick paper with a foreign stamp. It was from a young woman named Amira, a janitor in Dubai who had seen Martha's story online. She wrote, "I was ashamed of my job. Then I watched your video. Now I study every night. I want to open my own cleaning service, not to escape cleaning, but to make it honorable again. Thank you for showing me that dignity has no uniform." Martha read it twice, tears blurring the words. She framed the letter beside the glass mop in her office, and under it she placed a small note of her own handwriting. "Revenge isn't owning what they denied you. It's inspiring others to believe they can too." Outside, the city lights flickered like 1,000 mirrors reflecting her triumph. The cleaner who once scrubbed floors now cleaned souls, one story at a time. Scene 21. Shadows from the past. It was a quiet afternoon when Martha received a call she never expected. The hospital receptionist's voice was hesitant. "Ms. Hale, we have a patient named Colin Ward. He requested to see you." For a moment, Martha froze. Colin, the man who once tried to buy her out, who once mocked her when she was nothing but a cleaner. She almost said no, but something in the woman's tone stopped her. "He said it's urgent, and he doesn't have much time." That night she walked through the dim hospital corridors, carrying a bouquet of white lilies, not out of affection, but out of respect for the living end of a story. Colin lay pale, tubes running from his arms, pride drained away. "Martha," he whispered when he saw her. "You came," she nodded. "You asked." "I was wrong," he said, voice cracking, "all of it. I built walls where you built bridges. I laughed at you because I was scared you'd prove I'd wasted my life chasing numbers." Martha sat beside him. "You don't owe me an apology." "Maybe not," he said, "but I need to give it anyway. I saw your stores, how people smile there. I wish I'd known how to lead like that." She took his hand gently. "It's never too late to be kind. Even at the end, kindness counts." He smiled faintly. "You still talk like a cleaning lady." "And that's exactly what saved me," she replied softly. When he passed, later that week, Martha attended the funeral quietly. No reporters, no cameras, just silence, lilies, and forgiveness. As she left, she whispered, "Rest easy. The floors are clean now." Evercrest Renewal became a sanctuary of stories. Every wall carried photos of employees, past and present, with captions about their dreams. A section of the store was dedicated to the Cleaner's Corner, where janitors and service workers could showcase small products they made in their free time. Candles, handmade bags, art. Customers loved it. Kids ran through the aisles, laughter echoing between displays of recycled beauty and hope. One afternoon, a school brought a class of students for a social entrepreneurship field trip. A small girl tugged on Martha's sleeve. "Miss, were you really a cleaning lady?" Martha knelt. "Yes, sweetheart, and I still am. I just clean different messes now." The girl giggled. "I want to be like you when I grow up." Martha smiled. "Then promise me something. When people tell you your dreams are too small, remember they're talking about the size of their own hearts, not yours." The child nodded solemnly. That moment, a photographer captured the scene. The cleaning lady in a suit, kneeling on a shining floor, speaking to a child about courage. The photo went viral. The caption read, "She bought the store that mocked her, and turned it into a school of kindness. A year later, Martha stood under a golden spotlight at the Global Leadership Awards. The presenter's voice echoed, "For transforming humiliation into hope and redefining leadership through compassion, we honor Martha Hale." Thunderous applause filled the hall. As she approached the stage, she thought of her late husband, her small kitchen, her first kiosk, and the endless nights she'd cried over unpaid bills. When she began to speak, her voice trembled, not with fear, but with gratitude. "I used to believe cleaning floors was the lowest thing I could do," she said. "Now I know. It was the foundation of everything I've built. Every reflection I polished showed me who I was becoming." The audience leaned forward, silent, captivated. "I was mocked for my uniform, my age, my silence. But what they didn't understand," she continued, "is that silence can build storms. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is just preparing to surprise the world." Applause swelled again. "And to everyone listening, whether you clean floors, cook meals, or build dreams, never let anyone tell you your worth is measured by your title. Dignity doesn't wear a name tag." When the applause became a standing ovation, Martha smiled, not for the cameras, but for every unseen worker who'd ever been overlooked. It was a cold winter morning when Martha decided to visit her old neighborhood, the one where she and Samuel had shared a tiny apartment with leaky pipes and second-hand furniture. The building was still there, paint peeling, windows cracked, but it was alive, home to people who, like her younger self, were fighting quietly to survive. A young woman opened the door of apartment 3B, Martha's old place. She had a baby on her hip and exhaustion in her eyes. "Can I help you?" the woman asked politely. Martha smiled. "Once, this was my home. I came to remember what hope feels like when it's still small." The woman laughed softly. "There's not much hope here these days." Martha reached into her purse and handed her a card. It read, "Evercrest Renewal, Community Employment Program." "Come by the store tomorrow," Martha said. "Ask for me. We're hiring. No experience required, just heart." Tears filled the young mother's eyes. "Are you serious?" Martha smiled warmly. "I'm always serious about second chances." As she walked away, snow began to fall, soft, forgiving, endless. She looked up, letting the flakes land on her lashes. "This is where it started," she whispered, "and where it keeps beginning." One evening, as Martha closed her office, she found an envelope on her desk. The handwriting was familiar. Luce, her loyal friend from the kiosk. Inside was a simple note and a small key. "Dear Martha, you once told me that leadership means cleaning paths for others to walk safely. I'm opening my own store, Second Chance Southside. I'm hiring women like me who once thought their dreams had expired. Thank you for teaching me to believe again. The key is symbolic. It's to my heart, which you helped unlock. Love, Luz." Martha smiled, tears forming again. She looked around the office, at the glass mop, at Amira's letter, at the photo of the little girl from the store. Every story had become a mirror reflecting one truth: kindness compounds. Years later, Evercrest Renewal had grown into a movement recognized around the world. Every store, whether in New York, Manila, or Nairobi, opened each morning with a ritual, a short moment of silence for gratitude and the polishing of the floor by the manager themselves. It was Martha's tradition. Her way of saying, "Remember where you stand." Now older, her hair silver and proud, Martha still visited the flagship every Sunday. She'd walk through the aisles, unnoticed by new customers who only saw a kind, older woman smiling at everyone. One young clerk once asked her, "Ma'am, do you work here?" Martha laughed softly. "In a way, I always will." She bent down, picked up a small piece of glitter left from a child's craft display, and placed it in her pocket, a tiny memory of sparkle. Before leaving, she looked at the shining floor, its reflection infinite. They mocked the cleaning lady, she whispered, but she cleaned the world. The doors closed behind her with a whisper, like a curtain falling on a story well told. And the floor, oh, that floor, kept shining long after she was gone. If this story moved you, tell us where you're listening from, your city, your country, and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the Triumph Stories, where every story reminds us, no matter where you start, your comeback can be legendary.